Before we start the video, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Raycon. So more and more of us are getting vaccinated, and even better, it's almost summer. Chances are you've got plans, be it finally traveling again, enjoying the outdoors, or even just maintaining your wellness routine while throwing on an audiobook or podcast. Having said that, why not do so with a pair of Raycon's everyday E25 earbuds? The E25s come in a variety of colors and also feature a noise isolating fit, more bass, 6 hours of playtime, and they won't break the bank since they're about half the price of other premium brands. Best of all, Raycon also supports often demonetized content like this, so if you'd like to both support the show and get yourself a little something, then head on over to buyraycon.com/ReignBot to get 15% off your very first order. Again, that's buyraycon.com/ReignBot for 15% off. Thanks again to Raycon for the support, and let's begin. In June of 2020, investigators from Rexburg, Idaho began uncovering a patch of grass that was shorter than the rest on the property of Chad Daybell, a former gravedigger turned author and doomsday cultist. Beneath the dirt were 3 large, flat rocks. Beneath the rocks were a number of wood panels, and below the wood panels was the plastic-wrapped body of 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow. A second team searched a nearby area the Daybells referred to as their pet cemetery, and there they found the remains of a cat and a dog before unearthing a melted bucket and a partial human skull. This skull fragment belonged to Tylee Ryan, JJ's 16-year-old sister. The story of how they got there is strange and disturbing, and begins a number of years prior to this gruesome discovery.
But maybe they'll do it for you.
Republic of Ireland.
Yeah! Hi, Lori. How you doing?
I'm good.
You should be. I know you're ready to take that one away. Wait and see. Luis, don't get it, but he did.
Lori Vallow was known to those around her for being a loving mother who would do anything for her children. Daughter Tylee was said to have been close with Lori, and the same could be said for adopted son JJ. That is, until around the mid-2010s, when she started talking about an author called Chad Daybell. Daybell was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His books, however, primarily featured his own beliefs and were only loosely based on Mormon teachings. They were apocalyptic, with Daybell himself even being part of a prepper group. Daybell also claimed to have several past lives and that he could converse with angels and read auras. Now, as if that wasn't enough, he was convinced that many people on Earth were not who they were supposed to be. Rather, they were zombies whose souls had left them, and whose bodies were now inhabited by evil spirits. Among his teachings, he stated that the only way to release a zombie spirit to heaven is to kill their physical form. Taken by his writing, Lori chose to reach out to the author, and even temporarily left her home in Arizona to visit Daybell and his few followers in Idaho. Whether or not Lori Vallow had deific delusions before meeting Chad Daybell is not entirely clear, but regardless, connecting with the cultists seemed to have a potent effect on her beliefs. The pair began recording religious podcasts together, and in those recordings, she would declare herself to be a supernatural being who'd been chosen by God to, quote, lead the 144,000 chosen into the millennium. Her husband, Charles Vallow, was rightfully concerned about his wife's apparent descent into madness, though from Lori's perspective, this concern seemed to be taken as evidence that Charles was the enemy. April Raymond, another former family friend, explained the situation as such. Part of her mission on Earth was to eliminate the darkness, the demonic, the evil. The way she explained it to me about Charles was that Charles was already dead, and that there was a demon living inside him. By spring of 2019, Lori had started referring to her own daughter Tylee as a zombie, and had come to believe that the girl had a, quote, dark spirit. By the summer of that same year, her husband Charles had already gone to the police twice to express concern about his wife's mental state, and persistent threats she made on his life.
So what's going on tonight?
I can't get in touch with my kids.
How old are your kids?
6.5 and 16. Okay.
How long have you been trying?
2 days.
Okay.
But she's lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it. We're LDS. she thinks she's a resurrected being and a god, and remember the 144,000. Jesus is coming next year.
So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
She's threatened me, murder me, kill me.
She threatened to murder you?
Yes. And she said,
How did she do that?
My bishop right there is in the car. He was on the phone with me today when she said, "I will have you destroyed." Is what she said there.
Okay, that's not a threat to kill you.
Yesterday was a threat to kill me.
Okay. What did she say yesterday?
She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers."
Charles Vallow's claims were unfortunately not treated with the concern they deserved, and soon after, he changed the beneficiary of his $1 million life insurance policy from Lori to his sister Kay, who also happened to be JJ's biological grandmother. As you can expect, this soon led to Charles filing for divorce, leaving JJ and Tylee in joint custody, but not for long. On the morning of July 11, 2019, Charles arrived at Lori's new rental home to pick up the kids for school, and upon arrival, discovered that Lori's fiercely protective brother Alex Cox was also present. Just a few minutes later, this happened.
What's the emergency there?
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
When police arrived, Alex Cox was on the curb nursing a minor head wound. He told police that Charles Vallow had been, quote, getting physical with his sister during an argument. He said that Tylee had retrieved a bat from her room to defend her mom, but Charles took the bat from her and proceeded to hit Alex over the head, at which point he went to his room, retrieved his gun, and shot Charles Vallow dead. According to those present, both kids were outside when the shooting took place, and in police interviews after the fact, the children even told similar stories of self-defense. KTVB News interviewed an officer who responded to the 911 call, who described Mrs. Vallow as appearing nonchalant. The officer also expressed his thoughts on the wound Alex Cox sustained. It definitely didn't appear that he was struck with an extreme amount of force with a baseball bat. Charles was a very physically fit man, and actually a former college ball player, so it didn't appear that it was this huge strike to the head. The segment would continue on to say that, according to neighbors, Lori Vallow would actually throw a pool party later that same day. For whatever reason, Lori would lie about the shooting to staff at JJ's school, instead claiming that her estranged husband had taken his own life. A month or so later, she would lie again, telling them that the family was moving to California, and so JJ would have to be removed from their institution. In truth, on September 1st of 2019, they moved to an apartment complex in Rexburg, Idaho, not far from where Chad Daybell lived with his wife, Tammy. Alex Cox also moved to the same complex. September 8th, just a week later, is believed to be the last day of Tylee Ryan's life. Tylee would spend much of her final day in Yellowstone National Park with her mom, brother, and uncle. This was confirmed by a picture taken at the park and later found on Alex's phone. Sometime after the disappearance of the children, investigators would use location data from said cell phone to track Alex's movements, and it actually helped them paint a clear picture of what took place that day. Here's the timeline. September 8th, 6:45 p.m. The family leaves Yellowstone, and Alex returns to his apartment. September 9th, 2:45 a.m. Alex is in Lori's apartment and stays there for a few hours before returning to his unit. September 9th, 9 a.m. Alex arrives at Chad Daybell's home and is there for more than 2 hours. Records indicate that following this, Daybell sent this message to his wife, Tammy. On September 22nd, Alex's movements told a similar story. Sometime between 9 p.m. and midnight, he was seen carrying a sleeping JJ into the apartment by a couple of Lori's associates who were recording a religious podcast with her at the time. One of those associates, David Warwick, would explain to the press why Alex had taken JJ for the day. Lori said that he was being a zombie and climbed up top of the fridge, smashed her picture of Christ down, and then climbed up onto the upper cabinets and got between the top cabinet and the ceiling. At 9:55 a.m. on the next day, Alex Cox went to the Daybell's backyard, but this time he was only there for 17 minutes. The much shorter time frame led investigators to believe that Daybell, who let's not forget was a former professional gravedigger, was probably heavily involved in this second burial, if not both of them. At first, no one really noticed that the two children had gone missing, and this was of course due to Lori not reporting anything to authorities. A month went by without them around, and that's when this case took another bizarre set of turns. On October 19th of 2019, Daybell's wife Tammy conveniently died in her sleep, and no foul play was suspected at the time. This didn't upset Daybell all that much, or at least it didn't seem like it, because just a couple weeks later, he ran off with Lori to Hawaii to elope. Looking at their wedding photos, you really wouldn't expect these people to have just lost their spouses and not know where their kids are. Another month later, in September of 2019, is when authorities would finally come knocking looking for JJ. They were alerted by Kay, again that being Charles Vallow's sister and JJ's biological grandmother, who told them that she'd been trying to reach her grandchild for several weeks, but to no avail. Lori would simply give her bogus excuses every time. During this interaction with the cops, the woman now known as Lori Daybell attempted to play the victim and tried to turn suspicion towards Kay. My husband switched his life insurance policy to her, right? To his sister, who got $1 million when he died, and we got nothing for me to raise JJ. Lori would also claim that Tylee had simply gone away for college, something that could easily be debunked with a phone call. As the heat ramped up, Lori also lied to police and attempted to use her friend Melanie Gibb as a shield by having her say that JJ was in her care. She asked me to pick up my phone and take a random picture of kids running around. Take a picture of random kids to make it look like it was JJ, she said. Eventually, Gibb wanted to know why Lori was telling the police JJ was with her when that in fact was not the case. She decided to call Lori and Chad while secretly recording, and that's when Lori told her that JJ was in danger of being kidnapped by his grandmother, and that she didn't want to give this information to police in case they sided with Kay. This recording was proof that Lori was lying to police, and from there, Lori herself was to be put under a microscope. At the same time as this was all going on in the background, the case of the missing Vallow children would go national. Headline after headline popped up, with many perplexed by this mother who seemed to not even care that her children were missing. Law enforcement expressed their frustrations, claiming that Lori would outright refuse to cooperate with them. And to make matters even worse, she was now back in Hawaii having the time of her life with her new husband. As this case spread, people began looking into Lori and Chad, and of course this led to everyone agreeing that something horrible had happened to the children, and as we know, they were unfortunately correct. At the tail end of 2019, several other developments occurred. Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed to be re-examined, although the results of this examination aren't public at this time. On December 12th, Alex Cox was found by his stepson vomiting and gasping for air on the bathroom floor. He was pronounced dead of natural causes shortly thereafter. His wife of 2 weeks explained that he'd been suffering from shortness of breath for a week or so prior, and that he'd felt winded before collapsing but had refused to go to the hospital. On the day he was found on the floor, Alex allegedly called the one and only Chad Daybell and, quote, received a priesthood blessing over the phone. By January of 2020, authorities had had enough and ordered Lori to produce her children within 5 days. This, of course, didn't happen, and so Lori's vacation was cut short. She was arrested by Kauai police on charges of child abandonment and soon extradited back to Idaho. Chad, meanwhile, returned home. This, of course, was big news to anyone following the case at the time, but much to everyone's disappointment, this still did not result in the kids' safe return. In fact, Lori still wasn't talking, and neither was Chad Daybell.
We call from and hope for an inmate at Madison County Jail. This crime is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using silence.
Hello?
Are you okay?
So they're searching the property.
The house right now?
Yeah. Anonymous. So, Mark means will be
talking to you.
Okay. What, are they in the house?
No, they're out in the property.
Are they seizing stuff again?
They're searching. There's a search warrant, and so what I'm interested in is with the kids.
Okay.
Shortly after this call, Chad Daybell was arrested and the bodies of both JJ and Tylee were finally unearthed. The news of human remains being found on the Daybell property, of course, surprised no one. Both Lori and Chad Daybell pleaded not guilty to an array of charges, everything from desertion all the way to conspiracy and destruction and concealment of the children's bodies. But what about murder? Though the prosecution has expressed intent to pursue murder charges against the couple, at the time of writing this, that hasn't happened yet. This is where Lori's deceased brother may become a key factor, one with the potential to deny the type of justice most feel the perpetrators deserve. It's entirely possible that Alex Cox was the one who murdered Tylee and JJ, and given that he isn't around to face consequences, that could make him an ideal scapegoat for the defense to utilize, mainly for Lori. Chad, on the other hand, still could be facing trouble since he's now also suspected of murdering his first wife. In the end, this case is still ongoing, and it's hard to say where it'll eventually lead, but I do want to point out that there is a bunch of stuff I left out for time, like suspicion over Alex Cox's conveniently timed death, and other shady details about Lori's history. With that said, I definitely recommend looking into it because it is a massive rabbit hole. But anyway, this video was researched and written by Lux Noctis, edited by Darkfire Productions, with additional writing and editing by yours truly. Thanks as always for watching, and a quick shout out to the following lovely individuals: Connor H, Base of Shadow, WH, Sean the CHB, AJ Runaway, Andrew L, Astro, Bloody the Elf, Brandon F, Catherine L, Corky Barks, Daniel G, David G, Eric M, Esper Nix, Gavril B, Jamie P, KMBK Ketchup, Lizatar, Mishi Mishi, Ronnie, Sol A, T Gorman, Tyler T, Sweetchazalis, Zombies Were People 2, Daniel P, Bathtime Duck, Biznacker, Chris M, Clifford S, Daniel G, Deja, Echo Steel, Elon Musk, James M, Jamie M, Luck B, Matt J, Mega Brutal, Nick B, Panda Tiger, Scarecrow, Rai S, S Christine, Solar Avalon, SPC Zippo, Tyler the Outlaw, The Sleep King, The Man in the Crowd, Unseemly Tangent, Zerai, and Zimbledorf, The Calzone Consumer. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you're still listening, you're crazy, but I love you, and I'll see you next time.